Hello, family members. Hope you're having a nice day today. I want to tell you a story about something that happened to me recently. Um, if you don't know, I'm from Central Florida. We recently had the whole rigmarole down here about rainbow sidewalks, crosswalks, whatever. And in the very early days, I was very involved in spreading information in my local community. Not in a big way, but you know how communities do. I was sending content from one place to another place, cross pollination, I like to call it. And I made a little short video to put on like TikTok and Reels and uh, Shorts and all of those various formats, and uploaded it to all of my socials, basically. I think except for Blue Sky, and didn't really expect that much out of it. Well, it went very mildly viral on Instagram, just sort of randomly, which is not even like social media I use that often. So it kind of like took me by surprise. I didn't even notice it was happening at first. And the reason I bring this up is because the comments. I spent hours just going through and hiding the most vile, horrible comments that people left on that. I mean, a lot of it was lazy. A lot of it is really, really lazy. Just like, oh, burnout or rain or, something really stupid. And the same thing over and over and over again, right? And it's just like get a little bit of creativity, please. Okay. But some of it was very direct and very vile and very explicit about wanting to violently end the existence of queer people, gay people specifically. And another one that I got a lot of was the sentiment of, why can't you just be normal? Or imagine going through all of this rigmarole just not to be normal. And that really stuck with me. And that's the question I would like to answer today. That is the perspective that I would like to address today. Why is it that all of we special snowflake types, people who are gay or bi or trans or any of the other assorted queer types, aromantic, asexual, whatever, you know, why can't we just be normal? Why can't we just not listen to metal and rock and sinful music? Why can't we just listen to like the normal stuff, that pop music that is on the top 40 and all the other people are listening to, and country music? Why can't we just be normal? The truth is, a lot a lot of us that people look at and think that we're weirdos and why can't we just be normal? A lot of us tried, like really, really hard to be normal, to fit in, to be what it was that everyone around us expected us to be. And we just couldn't, The fact of the matter is, a lot of people look at a lot of people who are quote unquote normal or typical will look at people they think that are strange and ask, why are you that way? And the person says, I don't know. I didn't choose it. This is just who I am. If who you are is easily an expression of what is considered normal, then you have no idea what it's like to be asked to be something other than what feels normal and right for you. You just really can't understand how impossible it is to not be yourself at the end of the day. No, I'm sorry if you can hear the dog coughing. He's got congestive heart failure, so I can't really do anything about that, and he's got to be near me. So, just, anyway, and you can say, well, people choose to dye their hair, or they choose to dress a certain way, or they choose to get tattoos, or you know, wear goth clothing or whatever. And yes, that's true, but they didn't choose their taste. They didn't choose to feel like this was what was right for them. This just is what's right for them. And they don't get to unchoose that. I feel like in this country, we'd pretty much gotten to the point where we understood that about gay people. That gay people are just gay, whether or not they want to be. And you can ask them to change it, but they can't. But we've had a lot of social regression in the last few years, so I don't know that that's as broadly understood as it used to be, unfortunately. But it's not just gay people who are born the way they are, or born to be who they are. One thing that drives me crazy is this idea that if someone changes in some way, if they identified as straight and then they identified as gay at a different point, that at one point or the other they were lying. People can change. You know, demisexuality exists for one thing. Like, it's very possible that when someone is in love with somebody who is a woman, they feel like a lesbian. And when they're in love with someone who is a man, they feel like they are not a lesbian. But that doesn't necessarily mean that, she is lying. It's just that her sexuality literally changes depending on who she's in love with. Like, that could happen. That's way possible, and you see it happen in reality, and people just don't know how to talk about it. Even the people who are involved, like, I feel like Cynthia Nixon is a good example of this. Like, I feel like maybe her sexuality was a little bit not as immutable as she may have thought, but she didn't have the vocabulary for that, and so she just talks about herself the way she does, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's interesting to me that we can see people who switch the gender of their partner and change the way they talk about their sexuality and not see that as just a different manifestation of how their sexuality works. I maybe even JoJo Siwa is a good example of that, although I honestly don't know enough about that subject, so I probably shouldn't touch it. But at any rate, I'm just saying, people don't have to be one thing from the moment they're born to the moment they die. That there is, sort of an importance, a heft to things that are ephemeral or temporary. We don't have to look at things as set in stone. That, life, humanity, existence is just more varied and sometimes fleeting than we would like to think. I'm sorry I can't make your life easier for you and just be normal, I'm sorry I can't make my life easier and just be normal. I don't have that choice. I don't know that I would choose it if I could, but then again, my values are what they are. I didn't choose that. I am a person who probably feels more empathy than I should. That it maybe is a little bit of a flaw to a certain extent, how much empathy I feel. And that really drives how I want the world to work. I hate the idea of anybody being hungry or not having a comfortable place to live, to lay their head down at the end of the day, a stable home. Everybody deserves that. Everybody deserves food and health care and clean water. And everybody deserves the opportunity to have a fulfilling profession. And yet, we live in a society that doesn't value those things. We live in a society that values money. And money can solve some of those problems if people don't hoard it, but we live in a society where people do hoard it. And so I'm very much on the outside in this society because the way society is set up is structurally going to lead to people being hungry, to not having a stable and healthy home, to not having a fruitful and intellectually fulfilling profession, you know, to having clean drinking water and clean air to breathe. I can't help that. I can't change that. I can't be normal. I can't value hoarding wealth, people having the ability to hoard wealth beyond what they could ever use, above people not having those things. To me, until everybody gets their first, nobody deserves their seconds. And we have a lot of people who are not getting their first. And that bothers me. When I was a kid, my mom, who is a retired teacher at the time, she wasn't retired obviously, but she was an elementary school teacher. She taught 5th and 6th grade mostly. And she knew what elementary school kids are like. And she basically told me one time, like, if you don't change how you are and conform and be a little bit more like the other kids, it's going to be really rough for you going through school. And that really fucked me up, like, later on when I thought about it. I don't think it did at the time, but my response was, "But mom, I just have to be me." I didn't even ever consider for a second taking that advice because I knew I just couldn't. I was the weird kid that hid in the bathroom during lunch because she didn't have any friends. Okay? Like, that the other kids talked about behind her back because she was the weird one and nobody liked her. That was me. And I couldn't change who I was and be more like them. Even if I wanted to, I just couldn't. My brain doesn't work the way that theirs does, whatever. Okay? I am neurospicy. It's not a problem. It's just the way I was born. But I didn't understand that, really. And they didn't either. And, it was a really shitty experience for me, I'll be honest. I had a very hard time in school, as my mom predicted. And later on, no, actually, it was just a few weeks ago, I talked to her about this and told her that I thought it was kind of fucked up that she told me to, like, conform and stop being myself to not get bullied. And she told me what her perspective on it was. And it was a lot different. For her, it was like, I just wanted to save you trouble. I knew what was going to happen, and I just wanted to prevent that. And, I was glad that she gave me her perspective on it because I felt a little less like, hey, that's kind of fucked up, after hearing her side of it. But I still think that she's kind of wrong, I still think that it was not right necessarily to encourage me to conform. But, it was the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, and the way that people looked at things was a lot different then, in some ways and in some ways not. Fortunately or unfortunately, as some may say. Anyway, um, I have known so many people who were queer who lied to themselves and tried to convince themselves that they were straight. And they just never are able to. They might be able to do it for a few years, even a few decades. It doesn't mean that they can talk themselves out of being who they are. I'm aromantic. That means I don't feel romantic attraction. That means that I don't want to be in romantic relationships. I'm romance repulsed, which not all aromantics are, but I certainly am. And I don't understand why people stay in romantic relationships for the reasons they do, because I don't feel those same feelings that they feel. I can't relate to that either with men or women or people of any gender. And so it's really hard for me to understand why a person would be motivated to stay in a bad relationship because of romantic attraction, because they love that person, or even sexual attraction, because they, are physically attracted to that person. Those things are just foreign to me. I don't understand them. But I understand that they motivate other people. And that's what I want you people who ask me, why can't I just be normal, to understand, is I feel a need to be and do things that you think are inexplicable. And you don't understand because you don't feel the same needs as me. You feel things, most likely, unless you're aromantic like I am, that I don't feel. But I understand that about you. It would be a lot better for your existence in the world with people who are different than you if you understood that about me as well. Because it's got to be really frustrating to not understand that people who are queer, that are gay, bi, trans, whatever, aromantic, anything, that we aren't just choosing to be something special and unique because we want a little bit of attention. A lot of people think that's the reason why. I mean, I've even seen like Bill Maher make statements like that, oh, this transgender stuff is trendy. People just do that because they want to be trendy. And it's like, have you lost your mind? Do you think that people would put themselves through the kind of hell they have to put themselves through to be openly transgender in this incredibly hostile society for a trend? Do you feel all right, say you're a cis person who is not trans, and you feel comfortable in your gender, and all of a sudden someone came along and told you that you had to live the life of someone in the opposite gender, and everyone treated you like you were a different gender than you actually were. That would feel awful. It would feel like so disorienting. If someone tries to call me sir or treat me as if I am a man, that is a very upsetting feeling for me. I don't like it because I am not a man. I am a woman. I'm a cis woman, might have short hair because of medical conditions. I might be fat, but I'm a woman, okay? And I can't imagine how awful it must feel for trans people to have to deal with that. But I cannot imagine someone doing that to themselves on purpose if they didn't feel that. Could you do that? Could you just starting tomorrow start pretending to be a different gender and having everyone treat you as if you're that other gender for days and weeks and months on end? Even if someone paid you, you probably would not be able to do that because it would feel so uncomfortable. Why would anyone want to live their life in a way that would make them feel uncomfortable just to be trendy? Do you think that's how trends work? People usually do trendy things because they think they're enjoyable, you know? What's things that are trendy? Going to get a pumpkin spice latte is trendy, right? It is an enjoyable experience. That's why people do it. Uh, Watching cheesy Lifetime holiday movies or, this time of year, spooky horror movies or whatever. Those are trendy. Why do people do that? Because they enjoy it. So, why would somebody do something that would make them uncomfortable and make people treat them like shit as a trend? That doesn't make any sense. Please think more. I have to wrap up. I'm running out of time. I do want to say today's video is my very first ever sponsored video in that I lost all of my equipment and my friend Amaris from Black Hole Zion, the band, I'll put links below, sent me this lovely microphone and a tripod so I can go back to making videos. So thank you, Amaris. Black Hole Zion is currently got some shows in Pennsylvania and West Virginia, and I think maybe even New York. So if you're in that area, check it out. I have had the weirdest few months since the last time I was making videos, and a lot of crap has happened. So I'm gonna try to be on top of all that. But thank you very much, family members, if you're here to this point. I love you guys. Keep an eye on the flotilla. It's probably all captured at this point, but I don't know. And I'm probably going to be talking about that in my next video, so get ready for that, I guess. All right, take care of yourself, family members. Bye.